Good morning. Saturday, June 27th. And a couple of days ago, I ranted a little bit about the economic impact debit card that I had to call IRS and get it. And I want to recant a couple of statements I made during that thing. At the end of that rant, I'm pretty sure I said that the IRS did a reasonably good job, and it was a difficult situation. They were dealing with 60 million people, and that's a hard thing to do. So I was giving them, I don't know, a B plus or maybe a B, just a B. But now I want to recant, because what I'm about to tell you falls into the category of you can't make this shit up. I'm going to call this episode Dead Wrong, because that's what happened. The IRS sent $1.4 billion in stimulus checks to over 1 million people who were deceased. Now that is dead wrong. This was discovered not by the IRS, but by a government watchdog organization, the Government Accounting Office. They discovered it. Now, the Government Accounting Office wasn't looking for this. They were just doing a sweeping overview of the entire process just to see what exactly happened. So the report that they produced gives us a clear picture of what they're calling a muddled rollout. And that covers more than 160 million payments worth $269 billion. So they have called this a muddled rollout. Now, let me tell you what happened in this muddled rollout. Here's a brief overview of the project so we understand what we're talking about. Eligible Americans were supposed to get checks of $1,200 for a person, and couples were going to get $2,400 if they made either $75,000 a year or less, or $150,000 a year or less. And then people who made $99,000, or a couple that made $198,000 or less, would get some more money apportioned to them. So the basic thing was $2,400 for a family, and then $500 per child, depending upon your income level. That was the whole thing. And those numbers were based upon your 2018, your 2019, or your 2020 tax return. Now we get to the tricky part. The IRS has a mandate to deliver these checks as quickly as possible. So the Treasury and the IRS sent out the first 3 batches of payments using the previous operational policies and procedures for stimulus payments, which did not include using the Social Security Administration death records as a filter to halt payments to people who were deceased. So in such a rush, they skipped a major portion. That resulted in them sending $1.something billion out to the dead. On top of that, the IRS's legal counsel had determined that the IRS did not have the legal right to deny payments to those who filed a tax return in 2019 or 2018, even if they were deceased at the time of payment. I bet you can see what's coming. So there was a backlog when the IRS sent out this first batch of payments. And naturally, since they hadn't deleted the names of the deceased, families all around the country were getting checks for their family member who had passed away. And those families, at least most of those families, believed that they were entitled to the checks. They probably believed that the IRS was infallible and that they were entitled to the check. So what happened next is that the IRS realized that they screwed up, and so they updated its guidance, the guidance on the payments and everything, in May, to say that people who have died do not qualify for the coronavirus relief payments, and those checks should be returned to the IRS. And now the screw-up gets worse, because the Government Accounting Office said in its report that the IRS does not currently have a plan in place to notify ineligible recipients, which includes the relatives of almost 1.1 million deceased Americans who received a payment as of April 30th. The watchdog agency said the IRS should consider cost-effective options for notifying ineligible recipients on how to return payments, which the IRS agreed to do. Well, what is a cost-effective option? Does that mean we're going to send a letter to everybody who got one of these ineligible checks? You're going to send it to the relative of a dead person? You may not even know who the relative is. Are you going to get on the phone and call these dead people? How are you going to notify these people? If you can single out all of these people and you sent the checks to their bank accounts or wherever it went, and they may have spent the money. What are you going to do when the person spent the money? And what does cost effective mean? It's a bullshit term. When anybody in this business of dealing with names and addresses would have told these people, you better check and see not only whether or not the guy is dead, but what happens if there's a change of address and you're sending checks out to the old address? Now, you covered yourself when you sent money to the bank accounts, but anything that was mailed, a check or a debit card, I bet they didn't do any address corrections. I'm almost certain, I bet my life on it, that they didn't do any address correction against these files. So, in my mind now, when I prepared to give them a B, now they're getting a D minus. And that's because I'm an easy marker. They really should be getting a fucking F. And that's all I have to say right now. Bye. See you in the morning.